Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Ogbanje Joseph. So today we're still continuing with the strands of political ideology. So today we're looking at African socialism. African socialism. Okay, so the ideology of socialism has myriad of brands. So our attention here is on the brand practiced on the shores of Africa by African leaders. According to the Wikipedia, African socialism is a belief in sharing economic resources in a traditional African way, as distinct from classical socialism. Many African political leaders of the 1950s and 60s professed their support, for African socialism. Although the definition and interpretation of the concept varied from country to country depending on the perception. The ideology of African socialism, so the ideology of African socialism is not a product of one single person. No wonder, according to Graf Johnson, the principle of the state as a father, which is the basis of socialism, is what we have here in our clans or tribes, which are in fact extended families, in our society. The collective wealth of the extended family is used for welfare of the family as a whole. The extended family take on the function of social insurance, and if a member of the family falls into debt, all the others help him to pay it. If he is still ill, they look after him. If there is a bright boy in the family whom the immediate parents cannot afford to educate, the others help in educating him. Property, property, especially land, often belongs to the whole extended family. There are abuses on the extended family system, but its basic pattern, when enlarged to embrace the state, is virtually what is meant by socialism. So after the independence of African countries in the 1960s, some of these newly formed governments rejected the ideas of capitalism, which was what pushed the colonialists, to come to Africa ab initio, in favor of more Afrocentric economic model. Now, African scholars who advocated for the African socialism claimed that it was not the opposite of capitalism nor response to it, but something completely different. So the major proponents of this ideology are Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, Leopold of Senegal, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, and Sekou Toure of Guinea. They had common principles, which was hinged on economic development guided by large, public sector incorporating the African identity and what it means to be African, and avoid the development of social classes within the African society. Okay, so the next strand of political ideology that we'll be looking at is Ujammaism. Now, the ideology of Ujamaa is a variation of African socialism that was propounded by Julius Nyerere of Tanzania. It formed the basis of Julius Nyerere's social economic development policies in Tanzania after Tanganyika gained independence from its colonial power, Britain, in 1961, and its union with Zanzibar to form Tanzania in 1964. The word Ujamaa comes from the Swahili word for extended or familyhood, and it is distinguished by several key characteristics, namely that a person becomes a person through the people or community. Now, in 1967, President Nyerere published his development blueprint, which was titled the Arusha Declaration, in which Nyerere that pointed out the need for an African model of development, and that formed the basis of African socialism for Tanzania. Now, the Arusha Declaration sparked international discussions and debate about African socialism in the academic and economic world. He used Ujamma as a basis for a national development project. He translated the Ujamma concept into political and economic management model. He earned international repute for himself because there was emphasis on ethical principle as a basis of practical policies. Now, according to Izud, the concept of Ujamaa emphasizes that the family is analogous to a nation. He insists that emphasis on the family and family membership is simply to create in especially the leaders of the state that they are actually extended brothers and sisters to the rest of the people. He opinionated further that they are debarred from doing any evil to their own national siblings, either through misappropriation, embezzlement, exploitation, dehumanization, or oppression, all of which are characteristics of colonial capitalism. The point is that there is high level of mechanical solidarity that makes the people think that they are of the same family, and so whatever affects one affects the rest. Okay, so those are the things. So I have looked at some strands or brands of political ideology, and the first I looked at is African socialism. In Africa, what is actually very important, what is stressed, a lot of things that people do within the African society that is mechanical with them, that is organic with them, is actually what is known as solidarity. Now, this organic solidarity that they have, actually makes them to care for for each other. It is a society of one for all and all for one. Okay, so whatever affects one affects the rest in the society. That is why in African socialism, when or in the African tradition, that the ideology actually is birthed from, when one person actually is affected or is injured or is sick or dies, the entire society, the entire community is actually affected as well, because it is the entire society that will actually come up to handle the situation. So within Africa, when a child is bright, the entire community comes together to send that child to to further his education, and so the entire community is responsible for the education of such a child. Now, it is the same thing with when an individual has a problem. If somebody is sick, the entire community, the entire society comes together to actually form a support system for that person. So it is with African socialism. Of course, that is what African socialism is. Ujammaism is a strand of African socialism. Ujamma is actually the strand of African socialism that was practiced in Tanzania by Julius Nyerere. He looked at the he looked at the Tanzanian society as a society that should be ruled by a policy document titled Arusha Declaration. And this Arusha Declaration is actually the basis of it. The basis of this Arusha Declaration is talking about the development of Tanzania. Sorry, yes, development of Tanzania from the family system. Using the family, as the basis for the development. Okay, so the familyhood is actually the key characteristics, that forms the development of the Tanzanian society. So African socialism and of course Ujamaa, which is actually a strand of African socialism, all of them actually are based on organic solidarity. Thank you very much.